I think.
We're live.
All right. How you doing, my love?
Hey, how you doing?
I am good. Okay, so this is a year anniversary of the first time you and I ever went live to do anything.
Mhm.
And we're coming up on the year anniversary, and I wanted to do another video with us and just kind of hear the journey of
Mhm.
the last year. So the first time we ever did this, just to give some people some framework, the first time we ever did this, we did this because Cort had just found out some news, which we'll kind of share the journey. I said to you, we should do a live. We'll push to tell your story. You have an incredible story. Let's just get on there and do this. We'll promote the GoFundMe page. You were getting some support for some holistic care.
Yep.
And, as a result of doing that first video, we ended up meeting Eric Swanson. Big shout out to him. We love him. A million other things have unfolded from there. We did another live to kind of give an update. We talked about Joe Dispenza, our retreat with Joe Dispenza. We love Joe Dispenza, all the lessons we've learned in the last year. And here we are a whole year later, and you have a whole new, part of the journey, chapters of the story, an actual book, a summit that's coming up, like all these incredible things. So I think a year anniversary, we should just do it. You also texted me a couple of days ago that you had some big aha with another book that you just reread. And I think that it's a good idea to share that story. So I'm going to give it to you. Can you just give us the world of like where you've been over the last 6 months?
Where do you want to? Okay, yeah, okay, that's fair enough. I'm it. So I was just on one of these with Eric the other day, actually promoting the book, and
Of course.
it's what you just said. Kind of, it kind of just made me reflect on the year, and it just got me like I was just like, oh my gosh, we have come so far in this year.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's really incredible what's happened.
In this random place in wherever you were staying, Cardiff, on a couch.
Yeah.
4/27. It was right after Easter. I remember it. Just did your first live, and like how much you've accomplished since then and learned and grown, and it's crazy.
The crazy thing is that the cancer is still there, and it doesn't even feel like I'm really dealing with it right now. Like I have, I'm doing chemotherapy right now, and people can't tell, but I have a port right here in my chest. And
so start off, just like tell us how did you get here? Start the quick story like we would have said a year ago.
How did I get here? Wow, okay. So 2.5 years ago, I was diagnosed with a cancer, and I've been, I don't want to say fighting it, because I don't think it's been a fight. It's been an incredible, amazing, revealing journey for me. And it's been a lot of testing, a lot of surgeries, a lot of trying different modalities. And, honestly, like the doctors would tell you that it's advancing, but like I feel better than I ever have in a while. And I think it's because of the mission and purpose of this book and helping people. And, just a quick kind of audible. I was interviewing this guy, Stephen Cole, 2 days ago, and he's a professor of medicine at UCLA. And he studies stress biology. And he says that the most amazing thing about people that recover from diseases is that the ones that seem to recover the quickest and seem to kind of get their vitality back are the ones that have this big mission and purpose, meaning they make something bigger than themselves.
That's right.
And I really feel like that's my life right now. Like I'm doing something that's bigger than me.
Absolutely. I agree. And I think this is what caused me the first time to say, okay, we got to get on a screen and we got to share your story, because I love the story. It's very unique to us, but the story of when, Cort and I, for those of you guys who don't know, Cort and I have known each other for like a decade or 8 years or something like this, a long time now. And when I first met him, we bonded over his writing and some of the content that he was writing about in coaching and consulting. And one of the consistent narratives in our relationship and our friendship was I know I have this purpose. I'm not quite sure what it is. I don't know what the content is yet. And that was the thing that we were like, okay, cool. Let's just keep discussing it. It was one of our conscious conversations that we had a lot. What I didn't call conscious conversations then, but I do now. Right. And so when you called me I guess it would have been 2.5 years, you said 3 years ago. I don't remember exactly the dates on it, but I remember it being super impactful. And you called me and you said, guess what? I have cancer. And my response was, okay, perfect. You've got your purpose now. You know exactly what content you're going to be talking about. And that really was legitimately, I wish I would have saved the screenshot of that text, basically how our conversation sounded. And I knew that you would totally get what I was saying when I said that it was totally going to resonate with you. And your response without missing a beat was, yeah, I know, I got it. Like, I got it. That's what I figured out too. Glad we're on the same page. Perfect. And here you are, like full circle moment saying that thing. So this is why it's so inspiring to me. And I wanted to share the story as I always do, because there are people right now that are in individual, what I call like a ditch moment. They're stuck in ditch moments that are really challenging right now. And your story is a challenging story. You've gone through some challenges. You don't like to framework it that way, but you have this incredible other viewpoint of it that a lot of people will benefit from hearing, as they always do. So talk to us a little bit more, and let's just keep going down that rabbit hole. Go ahead.
So, have you ever heard the story of the Golden Buddha before?
I have. I don't think so.
So you just, this is a story that kind of came to me recently. And so Joseph Campbell, do you know who Joseph Campbell is?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So, he really talked about how mythology was a metaphor for life, and that everyone's on their hero's journey. And so it's interesting you bring up when you and I first met, and me when I was just starting to write. And so there's this story about a golden Buddha. It was sometime in the Middle Ages. There was a golden Buddha up on a hill, and an army was coming to plunder the golden Buddha, or plunder the monks. And the monks hid the golden Buddha. They put clay around it, and they encased it in stone, and put trees and limbs and stuff around it to hide its glory, hide its gold.
Mm.
And the army came, and they killed all the monks.
Mm.
And centuries later, a monk was praying to the Buddha, to that stone Buddha, the clay Buddha, and a piece of the stone came off and revealed the gold. Wow. Underneath it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the monk instantaneously got all the monks together and said, "Oh my God, there's gold underneath here."
Sure.
And so they came, and they they took all the rocks and all the clay off the Buddha and revealed its glory. Mm. And so what this metaphor is when we're a child, when we're born, we're golden. We're our truth. We're perfect. Mm-hmm. And over the years, our parents tell us to socialize, and they tell us to be a nice person. They tell us to wear masks, and they tell us to be safe, and they tell us to do the things that they would do. And what happens is these layers of clay come over the golden Buddha.
Yeah,
which is us.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, when I started writing, when I met you, I think the gold started coming out of me. Like I started revealing who I truly was. I started feeling that my career and all this stuff I was doing was unfulfilling. The people I was hanging around were unfulfilling. I was wearing a mask. I was wearing this clay, golden, this clay mask. And when cancer came along, it literally shed everything, because now it's like, when cancer comes, it's like it's your full glory. It's like you can either succumb to the disease, or you can realize that it's your new mission. It's really who you are. And all the fluff that happens in life is really it really means nothing. And Tim Ferriss said this a long time ago, and it's just starting to sink into me. And he said, most things don't mean anything. Most things don't have a meaning. Mm-hmm. Most of the things that we think mean something do not. Mm-hmm. And so the Golden Buddha story is really,
I love that story.
Yeah, it's really, I feel like we can see it in all of our lives. And I feel like a lot of us are wearing these very thick, clay encasings over our golden Buddha. And this is, unfortunately, society kind of puts us in this position too. It's the hedonic treadmill. It's consume, 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 and get to this one level, and maybe feel happiness for a little bit, but then put the bar a little higher and the bar a little higher, and then you never reach the bar, right? And so,
Absolutely.
I feel like my golden Buddha has revealed itself to the world, and I feel like sharing my story and helping others is the purpose. It's always been who I was. I just hid it away for a while.
Yeah. So you talk to us about two things. I want to hear about your big aha that you had in the book, that now it sounds like you're speaking to that author of the book.
Yeah.
I think I would love to hear that story. And then also just more about the book, but a little bit about, like, I think it would be important to mention here, because you're saying, here's all the lessons I've learned. Here's the purpose. Here's the vision. Here's what my positive light is on this. When was, like, one of your ditch moments in this? Like, what was one of the darker moments, and how did you, was it a couple of weeks ago when you said, oh, I had this big aha? Like, would you say that was the most recent one? Like, give some perspective on that too, because I think that's really.
You want me to talk about the aha moment or the ditch moment first?
It's up to you, actually. Either one is fine. Whatever direction.
So when you say ditch moment, what do you mean by that?
So that's just a term I use for, like, one of the dark, challenging, like, gosh, this really sucks, I'm in a ditch and I don't know how I'm going to get out of it, kind of shitty moments.
Well, that's the hero's journey, right? And
Sure.
That's why this hero's journey really, you haven't met my partner Jeff yet, I don't think, but he came up with this term remission, and it's remission, meaning mission, meaning it's your new mission, right? Redoing your mission. And so it's a word play on obviously cancer remission. And so we're gonna create these retreats and create this whole kind of mission around remission, because what we feel, and it has nothing to do with cancer, ALS, rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia. They're all different shades of the same disease. Mm-hmm. It's all stress biology. Mm. And it's all also encasing ourselves in clay, and not showing our golden Buddha. And so remission is essentially, rewriting and recrafting your mission, right? And so in the hero's journey, there's always going to be those ups and downs. There's always going to be those walls that you hit. And so, yeah, I have rough days all the time, but I think that now I am aware of those rough days as soon as they happen, and I say, good, this is going to make me grow even more, because without those rough days, there's no growth. And I think for me, it's, right now it's probably the isolation part that's a little difficult, because I do crave human connection, just like all humans do. Yeah. And when you're in chemotherapy, human connection is even, less available, because you're supposed to be, kind of isolating yourself. So whether COVID was happening or not, I'd still probably have to be in somewhat in isolation, and that's really difficult. And so what that does is that allows me to understand what other cancer patients are going through, which is why this summit, which I'll tell you about, is so important right now, because live events are not happening, and cancer patients still need help, and they still need support. And a lot of them don't have the mindset or the perspective that I do yet. They can get there. I was prepared for this because of things that happened before cancer. I was set up for this. I was set up to handle this.
Tell us more what that means. You were set up for this. I think most people will not understand what that means.
Yeah. So in 2009, I had a bankruptcy, and that was during the market crash, and I had lost everything, and short sold my condo, and my car almost got repossessed. I had to literally bring my car to the dealer and be like, "Here, don't repossess it. It's right here." And so that was the beginning of the shedding of the clay, the mold. Okay. I thought this was all a bad thing, but it was actually life telling me that I didn't need these things. This wasn't who I was. This wasn't part of me. This wasn't going to allow me to actually, share my true gift. And so it was in 2009, I believe, that Eric Berman gave me a Brian Tracy book. And this was why I got emotional during, I interviewed Brian last week. How full circle life has come.
It's totally full circle. Yeah.
And so Eric gave me this book, and it was Create Your Own Future. And then there was another book, Change Your Thinking, Change Your Life. And it was really awareness of our perspective. That's really what it is. It's awareness of our perspective. It's not, it's life throws you curveballs. How do you perceive those curveballs? Do you perceive them as constructive or destructive? Yep. And so a lot of us see it as destructive. And so Brian's, great teaching is to make it constructive, make your diversity constructive. And so I interviewed him last week for the summit, and I just paused and I said, wow, Brian, 10 years ago, this journey all began. And it all began with me going through bankruptcy and getting your book. And here I am today. When cancer hit, I was like, okay, I was ready. That seed was planted. I said, I could turn this into a bad thing or a good thing.
That's right. And it's all about that like little switch of a mindset shift.
Yeah.
Right? It's all about turning the dial on that.
And I turned it into a good thing.
Yeah. So talk to us about your book.
So should I go into the aha moment or the book first?
Oh, sorry. Do whatever you.
Let me go to the aha moment first.
Story, so you go ahead and tell.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So, so life comes full. One thing I want to say to everyone is that all the millions of people watching this, I want to say.
Thanks, guys. There are 1 million live viewers right now, Cort.
I want to say that, 5 to 10 years ago, spirituality really didn't have the meaning that it has to me, and now it has to me now. And it's amazing because I feel like to feel emotion and to feel this kind of joy in life, to connect with the energy around us, we really have to open our heart. And my heart had this, wall around it. And a lot of us have this wall around it, our hearts, because we're protecting ourselves. And again, this goes back to the Golden Buddha story is going to be it's going to be my new story. It's going to be my new because again, it's our parents telling us, you got to be careful and stay safe and be protected. And so it's this boom, 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 boom. Right. And what's going on with COVID right now is kind of that we're putting on more clay layers right now, because basically what we're saying is we're giving up life to feel safe. Right. And so, going back to, the space right now, what's amazing is with my space is yes, I'm working hard on this book. Yes, I'm working hard on the summit, but I make sure that I have 1 or 2 days a week where I do nothing and I just connect. And so I took a long drive, and I was really excited to hear that Bernie Siegel came to me, and I've always, again, I manifested it. It was something that it was always supposed to happen, and I was always supposed to talk to this wonderful human being. He wrote a book called Love, Medicine, and Miracles, and I'm going to interview him next week.
It's amazing.
And I heard the book over a half a dozen times. I did it on Audible, and this was right in the beginning of the cancer journey, which was 2 years ago. And I realized that I didn't hear it at all. Oh. And this time around, it was just punching me. Like I was driving and it was just hitting me in the face, and like I had to stop at points because I had so many moments of just like, whoa. First and foremost, he has these 4 questions for a new cancer patient that he has. And so, by the way, he was an MD at Yale, which is, again, let's come full circle. I was diagnosed at Yale. I was seen at Yale. So this is just crazy, right?
Yeah.
And so he was doing things different than most of the other oncologists, and the other oncologists were, kind of against his methodology, but he was keeping people alive longer, and he was having incredible, miracle healings. And so it all started with basically this psychosocial aspect of cancer, the stress aspect of cancer. No one was talking about mindset, and no one was asking these people how they were feeling about their cancer diagnosis. And this was, the story of my TED Talk. And I didn't realize that it really stemmed from Bernie's book. And so he had these 4 questions. And the first question he asked cancer patients is, do you want to live to be 100?
Wow.
And, if you don't, he asked that question while I was listening, and I said right away, I said, yes, and that's I feel that way. Like, I want to live to be 100. And so for that purpose, I know that I'm going to get through this. And then he delves deep into it, and he goes, what happened to you a year before the cancer diagnosis? What does the cancer mean to you? And what was the other one? What does the cancer mean to you? And I forgot the other question. But it's along the lines of what does cancer represent in your life? And then what are the feelings that comes up? What are the feelings that comes up with cancer? And so basically what he's doing is he's trying to figure out what are the emotional triggers that led to the cancer. And so my big aha moment was that I personally believe that cancer is unprocessed trauma. That's what I believe cancer is. Processed emotional trauma. So what I had thought attributed to my own disease, the disease in my body, was actually not it at all. And so I had this big aha moment of what it actually was.
Crazy. Are you there? Because I know what you've been thinking this whole time.
Yeah. So I had an aha moment of what it actually was. And it was a relationship. It wasn't the bankruptcy. It wasn't the childhood trauma. I had an accident when I was a child. All of those things were dominoing, like it was all kind of piling on. But it was this relationship that I had in 2014.
Oh, wow.
And it was my perception of that relationship that really cascaded this whole thing. And it was just, I stopped the car and like I had this, just the goosebumps all over my body. Because I just knew. I was like, wow. I was like, I didn't see this at all. I never saw this. And by the way, the week started with Brian Tracy. And Brian's interview, because he believes in the kind of the psychosomatic aspect of cancer as well. He was in Singapore doing a talk, and he had just got diagnosed, and he went to go see a woman in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. And she's this kind of mystic, but she's a cancer doctor. And he said, I have, she came up to him. She's like, where's your cancer? He's like, it's in my throat. It's on my right side of my throat. She goes, left or right? She goes, right side. And she goes, within the last year, you lost money and you are not forgiving someone. And he almost fainted because he knew who it was. He just stopped and he goes, oh. And he goes, he knew what it was. And now there's a lot of cancer biology that says that, for instance, if it was the right side, it's related to career and money. If it's the left side, it's related to relationships, right? Like there's breast cancer, especially.
Yeah.
I've spoken to dozens of breast cancer patients, and all of them have had trauma within the last, 1 to 2 years.
Yeah. I know you said that when we had our last chat about this kind of stuff and all the things you were uncovering.
Yeah.
I remember saying every one of these people had a massive trauma that they were trying to process and
totally.
That they hadn't fully processed.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so Brian said, Brian's like, Cort, there's this thing called the Sedona method, and it's really simple, and it's essentially about letting go, right? And he's like, there's this analogy that you're holding on to a pen really hard, And he goes, how do you loosen your grip? How do you let go of the pen? And he goes, just, he goes like this, and he just says, let it go. And so that was like the beginning. I kind of like said to myself, I'm like, okay, I already kind of got that. But then I was listening in Bernie, listening to this was like probably 5-6 days later, driving through Ramona. And then Bernie said that. And I said, whoa, everything came full circle. The Brian Tracy thing, the Bernie Siegel thing, the aha moment about where the cancer came from. It was all just like, wow. And I was like, I just need to let it go. And I just had this weight kind of lifted off me, like this, like I've always had this thing. You and I both have this.
We both have this like
the tightness in the solar plexus.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so what that is that's tightness in our, in our energy centers, and there's a blockage, and I just had this like release.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was really, and by the way, I'm not going to get into it because it's, I don't want to say it's private, but it's somewhat, Natalie, you and I can get into it offline. But the organ, which was my bladder, the organ of origin, he has this chapter. I had another aha moment. I'll use another analogy. Let's just say that, I'll use Brian as an analogy.
Okay.
So what's the biggest asset to a speaker, Natalie? What's the biggest asset?
Is your voice.
Your voice. So where did he get his cancer?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
In his throat.
Mm-hmm.
There was a woman, I was watching American Idol the other day, and there was a story, and I just absorbed these stories. There's a contestant, and the mother was a famous singer. She was a famous backup singer. And what's the biggest asset of a singer?
Their vocal cords.
No, actually your lungs, right?
I guess that makes sense. Huh?
She died of lung cancer.
Oh God.
Right. And so what's really super interesting about cancer is that it goes to the spot that's our biggest asset. And the reason it does that is because it makes us rethink who we are. It makes us kind of take a step back and go, is this really who we are? Is this our mission? Is this our values? And so,
wow.
Like I said, yeah, my origin organ was related to what I went through.
It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So just to kind of recap on this, you had this aha moment a couple of weeks ago that basically
last week, it was Saturday.
Oh, it was recent that a unprocessed emotion that was causing you a lot of fear-based emotions, right? You were not in a love-based light space about any of this stuff that was stuck around this relationship.
Wasn't fear. It was a sense of I
would say emotions always fall into one of those two buckets, right?
Yeah, it was actually a feeling of worthlessness. It was actually a feeling of you not being good enough.
Right, not being good enough. So you were fearful, or we have just fear and love based buckets, right? For emotions, we'll just keep it simple. You had a not good enough worthy issue, right? And you were beating yourself up. You were replaying stuff. You were what? What was it? What did it kind of look like? Just so people can kind of see if they're not familiar with this content a ton.
With the relationship?
Well, yeah, just how that unprocessed.
So that's the whole thing, is that we
created this physical manifestation.
We subconsciously put it deep down inside of us. And you and I have, you and I talk about this. We both have, those relationship traumas. And by the way, everyone has relationship trauma, whether it's your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, everyone has relationship trauma.
Yep.
And so for me, I suppressed it. Like I didn't even feel it. It wasn't even registering until it came back up. And I was like, holy crap, that is still in my body.
When you did the release, the Sedona, the aha, the goosebumps, all that stuff, was any part of that release being able to communicate with that person and say, I forgive you, or this is kind of how it was for me, or was that not necessary? Was that a part of the equation at all?
Forgiveness is not necessary because if you look at it as she did something to me, that's making you the victim. That's not how it goes. It is my interpretation of her actions.
Got it.
So there's no forgiveness. It's forgiving myself. I guess.
Okay, so there,
right?
forgave yourself. You said it's
Yeah.
okay. I forgive myself. I know
Yeah.
it's in a real narrative, and I release.
But then I did something, and this comes from John DeMartini, which is just the best thing ever. I wrote down, I said 100 benefits of going through this breakup. And I wrote them down, and it melted me because I never would have found personal development. I never would have found spirituality. I never would have gotten this book. I never would have talked to cancer patients like this. I
And
never would have got to interview Brian Tracy. I never would have gotten to interview Bernie Siegel. I never would have gotten to meditate like this. I never would have gotten to do any of these things. I wrote 200 things, by the way. I kept going.
I think that's incredible. I was just on here last night on an interview talking about how all my stuff has come from business breakups and personal breakups. And you have witnessed, I mean, for you guys who don't know, Cort is like one of the people I'll call when I'm going through something, and he'll talk me off ledges.
We both talk each other off ledges.
Well, we do. We talk each other off ledges, and it's incredible and valuable. But you've witnessed how much I've tortured myself in these kinds of experiences. And really, I think it's so beautiful. I didn't know this was actually the story because we said, let's wait to hear the aha. And I think it's just like, wow, it just comes back to a breakup. Like, not surprising. I'm glad that you wrote down your 200 list. That's incredible. So will you communicate with the person? That's the next step for me would be.
No, I don't think it's necessary because again, it's not a, hey, I forgive you. It's not that. It's
gratitude.
If anything, oh, by the way, I also did an expressive writing exercise afterwards too. So I wrote her a letter and I wrote her, it was like a 3, 4, 5 page letter, and you want to write, you don't want to type, right? And I wrote her a letter, and the letter was thanking her.
Right.
It wasn't forgiveness. It was thanking because of all the things that came from it.
Totally.
And then I took a match and I lit it on fire and I
released it.
Oof.
That's incredible. That release, by the way, like the lighting the thing on on fire and releasing, this is what I have noticed in doing that exercise. You think when you do it for the first time, you're like, oh, I'm going to feel so much better as soon as it's done. Sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. But you will a couple days later, and you'll notice something that would have triggered you, something that would have come into your awareness and would have normally gotten you wherever it gets you in your body. You don't feel that way. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I guess I definitely released a part of that, because that thing, that one moment that would have reminded me, or that it doesn't trigger me anymore. And you know that you've really found the other side of it when you can write that letter and be grateful. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Wow, I'm actually, this, it gives me goosebumps just talking about this because of everything that just has come full circle. This interview, just everything that's come full circle.
It's so awesome. I'm so happy you shared that story. Thank you for that. Okay, so I know that you have to leave in a few minutes, and I know we always go way over when we want to, but it is what it is. It's our conscious conversation. So just tell us about the book and the summit so that people can purchase and be in the know and all this incredible stuff that you're doing.
Awesome. So again, this was a manifestation that came to me through it all comes back to the conversations, the relationship that you and I began, and that was talking about my writings. And I always knew I wanted to write. I didn't know the avenue, right, Natalie? And all of a sudden, boom, the avenue just came to me, right? It's like, okay.
And thank you, Stephen Semblis, for helping you organize that vision.
Yeah. And so I think it would have been overwhelming to write my own book in the beginning. You know, especially with what I'm going through right now, because I do have a lot of down days where I'm just too tired and too weak. And so a compilation book came to me. And so it's One Habit to Beat Cancer. And we got together with 40 plus cancer survivors, and they have incredible stories, and they share one habit that helped them get through the journey and one bad habit, we call it an unhabit, that they kind of released.
Mm-hmm.
And, in the beginning, I kind of thought it was going to be this, just cheesy compilation book, but it turned out to be this amazing, just incredible journey. Not that I didn't think it was going to be amazing, but just so much emotion came out of it.
Totally. Absolutely. And it's an incredible book. Stephen Semblis is your, what are you guys calling each other? Like co-authors?
Yeah, co-authors.
Co-authors. Yeah. And you've basically put a compilation book together of cancer stories and their habits for beating it, for mind shifting, all of these kinds of things. And I have read your story so far, and it's amazing. And it was, I gotta say, like, it was hard for me to read that story because I did a little bit of editing, just a little bit with you, but it was challenging for me to open it up, if I'm being honest with you, because I was always afraid what I was going to find, because you don't always tell the whole story. And so that's why when I was being really honest with myself, I was like, why is this taking me a long time to look at?
Huh.
I remember it being, I wanted to share that with you. I didn't intend to do it here, but here we are. So like,
I love it. It's great.
Challenging for me every time I would open it up, because it would be like, because I would read certain lines and I'd be like, oh God, I don't know if I can read this whole thing.
Like it would be too emotional to you?
Emotional.
Yeah.
And I told Alex Stern about it, because I was chatting with him and I was like, I have this in front of me and it's sitting on my computer and I'm having a hard time bringing myself to it because I don't know what I'm going to find in it. Because always you're positive. Like, you don't have a lot of moments where you really say, like, here's what I've been told the reality is. It's always like, I've been told this reality, but like, this is my reality, right? And this is why we're also inspired by you. So I didn't want to play into any of that either, right? So it was like this interesting thing of reading that story. And by the time I read it and played around with it a little bit, I was just, it's an incredible story. It's super inspiring. It's an amazing book.
It's still being written, the story.
So
The story is still
you.
being written.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So, yeah. So thank you for your work and your energy and your spirit and being a light worker on the planet, a person that raises consciousness and brings light to the planet. And it's 333, which is a perfect time to close it, because that's divine.
And one more thing, we have a summit coming up. We have a summit coming up May 18th to May 27th. It's a 10-day summit. It's over 30 speakers. Brian Tracy, Hal Elrod, Bernie Siegel, John DeMartini, Janine Shepherd, like amazing human beings it's a play to give cancer patients who are all in isolation right now, to give them some hope and some joy and some, mindset work. And I'm really super excited about that. And it's all going to be to brand the book, and we're going to share profits with cancer nonprofits who are struggling right now. So
I think it's amazing. I'm so proud of you. I love you. Let us
know where to
find you. Where should we find all this?
Well, I would say the best thing to do is to go on to Amazon. The book's there, One Habit to Beat Cancer. And I think the easiest way to follow the summit, because we don't have the URL up yet, it's going to go out next week, is just to go to the Facebook page, One Habit to Beat Cancer. And that'll have all the updates on it.
Cancer. Okay. I'll get the links from you and post it in this post too. So we can send everybody there.
All right.
Everybody, have a beautiful day. Thank you for being here. We love you. We're sending
you.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.
All right.